What's going on, guys? Today, we are doing a Green Bay Packers 7-round mock draft. So Green Bay obviously got a lot of draft capital in the Davante Adams trade. Now they have to do something with it. And if you look at their roster right now, the obvious hole is wide receiver across the board. I think they have Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb, the top receivers right now. They did resign Robert Tonyan, but he's only on a one-year deal, and Mercedes Lewis is not getting any younger. So you could be looking at tight end. Right tackle, they don't have Dennis Kelly anymore, so right tackle could be a bit of an issue to look at. And offensive line depth in general, considering injuries they've had in recent years to Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari. So that would be an issue. Defensively, not as many problems. The linebacker spot alongside Devondre Campbell might need to be addressed. I know they have some young guys there who hadn't really worked out so far. The cornerback room feels pretty solid to me. You might want to go out and get one more guy just to check it out. But overall, the defense looks pretty good right now. Eric Stokes is really good last year for them. And Jair Alexander's come back from injury. The two safeties they have are both really good. And defensive line, you got Dean Lowry's holding down a spot, maybe not like a high-end player, but still a solid player. And you have to have players like that who are the glue of your roster. They recently signed Jaron Reed to work on the inside as well. Maybe you add someone at a depth piece on the edge to maybe eventually replace Preston Smith. Well, other than that, there's not a ton of needs on defense right now besides depth. So those are the areas I'm going to focus on going into today's draft. And we are once again using the mock draft machine from the Draft Network. So let's get this underway. Green Bay has 2 picks in the first round. I will not be doing trades today, or at least I'll try to avoid them. I genuinely like just how scenarios play out, where picks are. And I know it doesn't make a lot of sense because come draft time, there will be trades. But for now, I want to just kind of stay where we are and make picks at the positions we have. And immediately, the first pick is going to be pretty obvious for me. I have Drake London as my wide receiver 1 in this draft class. Some things with him, he's not much of a natural separator per se. He's going to have a lot of contested catch chances. The comparison everyone makes for him is Courtland Sutton on the Denver Broncos. Just a big body guy who can create yards after the catch with his physicality. I think Drake London will be a little different than Sutton. I think Sutton is a little bit more of a threat to go downfield. London can certainly threaten you vertically, but probably not to the degree of Sutton. Doesn't have tremendous speed, but I think has better speed than what he's given credit for. You can throw him on shorter routes too, though. You get them on screen routes. He's got the body, the size, the physicality. I think he's 6'4", 220, I believe, to create yards after the catch, especially against corners. And he is tremendous in contested catch situations. I think he caught over 66% actually it was closer to 69% of his contested catch situations last year. So he's a tremendous contested catch player. Can win short, can win long. And for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who already has supreme accuracy, I mean, this just kind of levels him up quite a bit. Those 50-50 balls will turn into 80-20 balls with a guy like Drake London on your team. He is my wide receiver 1. And you can see, there's plenty of other guys out there at receiver who they're going to have a chance of getting. You can get Jahan Dotson. In the past, I've seen Garrett Wilson be available at the spot. Chris Olave, Treylon Burks, Sky Moore, Christian Watson, George Pickens. They have their pick of they have a lot of guys they can choose from here. You don't have to go Drake London. But for me personally, Drake London's my wide receiver 1. So to get him at pick 22 is a big win for Green Bay. And then you're going to pick again at 28. You can see the run on wide receivers right here. I was considering it. I was like, if Chris Olave's there at 28, you might as well just double down, right? I wonder if there's ever been a team that's done that in the first round. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but, I think it might make sense in this situation. Someone like Sky Moore would be a slot receiver, certainly intriguing. Christian Watson, George Pickens, both guys with very high ceilings. A lot to improve on, a lot to prove, really, for both those players. But looking around the board now, just overall, Kenyon Green on the interior offensive line. You might need that if you want to move Jenkins to right tackle, which I imagine you'll consider moving Elton Jenkins to right tackle now, considering David Bakhtiari is back at left tackle. Jenkins was really good at left tackle this past year, played at a Pro Bowl, nearly an All-Pro level. And he's probably going to want to get played like a tackle. This guy will I don't think he'll be upset if he gets moved to right tackle, which he played a little bit of in 2020. So Elton Jenkins might be moving outside, and if that happens, you're going to need guard help. So someone like Kenyon Green's on the board, who would certainly help up there. Tyler Smith as well. 2 guys who have some really good positional versatility, can play tackle or guard potentially, can be emergency tackles who can play guard primarily. But look at the edge, and Boye Mafe, they already had Preston Smith, who had a really good year last year, maybe his best year in the NFL. And then, of course, on the other side, Rashawn Gary was a breakout player. I mean, this is a guy who struggled his first 2 years. Really athletic dude. I think he had like over 70 pressures this past year. Didn't get an All-Pro selection, but was legitimately a top 10 edge rusher this past year. So Gary broke out. Preston Smith, I believe, just signed a restructured extension, so he's going to be with the team a couple more years. But if we're looking at that long-term projection, keeping this team young and healthy long-term, Boye Mafe is going to be very similar to someone like Rashawn Gary. Young, extremely athletic, a little bit raw. It's going to take maybe a year or two to get into place to where he's going to be a breakout kind of player. But there's so much physical potential there. There's I forget what it's called. It's a raw athletic score, a RAS score, that is handed out by website to players. And Boye Mafe, I think, had like a 9.91 out of 10 or something like that. Something ridiculous. If you graded him as a linebacker, you would have had a perfect 10 out of 10. If you graded him as an edge rusher, I believe it was a 9.9, I think. And for context, Kayvon Thibodeau got a 9.71 or something like that. So Boye Mafe is an elite athlete who I think will provide you with a lot of depth at edge, which you need right now because you cut Zadarius Smith, you have Rashawn Gary, you have Preston Smith, who has, during his time with the Packers, at times, been an average to below average pass rusher. He was really good this past year, but at other times he has not been that player. So I think Boye Mafe gives you someone who will eventually replace Preston Smith in your lineup. Which I think in 2 years from now, maybe, you might be able to cut Preston Smith and save almost $7 million. So I would consider that, considering Preston Smith's still going on 29 years old at this point. Just something to think about. I'm taking Boye Mafe here. But I'd be way open to understanding if you want to go somewhere else and maybe address edge rusher later. But Boye Mafe, to me, he's one guy who at that point makes sense from a value perspective and a long-term projection. You had that 5th year of that contract for him if you take him in the first round, which is vital for a developmental player. They took Tyler Smith right before me. I want Tyler Smith so bad. I really did. That way we can move Rashawn Gary outside. But I'm looking at the tackles, though, and we can still get a good tackle later on in this draft, I'm pretty sure. Interior offensive line. Sean Ryan is a good player. I think he played a little bit tackle at UCLA. I have not done a write-up on Sean Ryan yet. I fully admit that. I haven't done this write-up yet. I am much more familiar with guys like Jamari Salyer. And I know they say Green Bay needs a tackle. In my situation, Ellen Jenkins is your tackle. So you kick him outside. And again, I think he'll be open to that because then you get to get paid tackle money. And there is a difference between being paid like a tackle and paid like a guard. So if we draft a guard here, it's to move Ellen Jenkins outside. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of good players on the board here. It's kind of difficult to make this decision. I'm hoping to get Chad Muma at 59. I'm hoping. Will it come true? I don't know, but we'll find out. And I would consider Travis Jones at this point, but Kenyon Clark is really signed to the team for a while now. So I don't think taking our nose tackle would really be beneficial for them at this spot. John Mechie. I might want to get Mechie actually at 59 instead. But either way, I think Sean Ryan has to be the pick here with the setup being that I want Tyler Smith, but with Sean Ryan, you have a guy who can play guard now. And he's a pretty good athlete from what he did at the combine. I remember his numbers were really off the chart. You have a guy now who can slide into left guard if you need him to. And then you can kick Elton Jenkins outside to play right tackle. Which I think he'll be open to. If he's not, it changes everything. If you don't want to do that, I completely understand. It's a little bit of an unorthodox strategy. But let me go Sean Ryan. All right, and I have to pick a guys I wanted. It comes down to Chad Muma for me to play alongside Devondre Campbell, or we can go John Mechie here. Personally, I like John Mechie quite a bit, so I'm going to take him in this spot. I am a big fan of John Mechie and what he does. He's just a natural separator. So you get someone like Drake London, who's going to be more of a contested catch receiver, and you get someone like John Mechie, who's capable of winning primarily in short and intermediate route situations, just with his skill, his releases, his ability to create separation with quick cuts at the top of his routes, and his good feel. He sells routes really well. I mean, he's a good salesman in terms of being able to kind of fake with his head, his hands. So Mechie does a lot to create space and make life easy on quarterbacks. So you have someone like Drake London who requires a little more precision. You pair that with John Mechie, who gives you more of the shorter stuff, the more intermediate routes, and gives you a lot more space to operate with. I think that helps out your team immensely. I really probably could have just not drafted Sean Ryan, just taking a tackle here at 92. That would have made a lot of sense. But instead, because I did things my way instead of doing things probably the logical way, we can go about this in a different way. We're going to have to take Channing Tindall here. In my opinion, a guy who's got – I haven't done this right up on him yet either. I have to do that later today. But Channing Tindall is a player who has pretty good agility, pretty good sideline to sideline range. Going to be really impactful against the running game. The questions for him are going to be more in the passing game. But you pair him with Devontae Campbell, who had an all-pro caliber year this past year. The hope's going to be that it will kind of even out as he learns the position. I can understand arguments for Troy Anderson here as well, maybe even Brandon Smith. Those are the three linebackers I would consider at the spot for Green Bay. Anderson would be more of a versatile, do-it-all kind of player who will admittedly probably struggle a little bit more in running down situations because of his lack of size per se. I don't think he deconstructs blocks as well as someone like Channing Tindall, who just is incredible in his ability to flow sideline to sideline. So I'm going to take Channing Tindall here and I'll kind of fix our linebacker situation. And I will hope that there will be one more viable tackle left on the board when I get there. So I don't dislike the idea of, despite doing what I've done so far, going out and getting another tackle to maybe add depth there. Because you've seen it in the past for Green Bay at this point. They have had so many injuries. And Bakhtiari, it feels like almost every other year deals with an injury. So if you're looking at getting a tackle or looking at what you need to draft here for Green Bay, someone like Max Mitchell, who I don't think is ready right now because he gets pushed around too much. He needs to add some strength in his lower body because at the Senior Bowl, he got moved around quite a bit. He was not an elite athlete at the Combine. But we're talking about a guy who could be a depth piece at the very least and really help you out and give you that security blanket in case something happens to David Bakhtiari and Atlin Jenkins has to go play left tackle. I think someone like Max Mitchell is going to give you that. You can rely on him in his first couple years in the NFL to be a good swing tackle potentially. I mean, drafting him at 132, I mean, that's not the worst in the world. Looking around a little bit, though. Oh. Jelani Woods is here. That's one I might actually swing for instead. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, corner is something you can address in the later rounds if you were Green Bay. I would also like to get a safety at some point, but I want to hold off on that because they might move on from Adrian. Adrian Amos is a free agent next year, I believe. So adding some depth safety would not be a bad idea immediately. But Jelani Woods is just a freak athlete. Getting him at 132 in the fourth round is a pretty good addition here. If you watch anything he did at the Combine, he just destroyed guys. And Max Mitchell went off the board. Oh, man. Why you do that? They skipped over Braxton Jones just to take him. Oh, man. I admittedly got greedy there. That was not my plan. But Jelani Woods does give you a really good tight end. And was Charlie Kolar still on the board? He was. Oh, I should have gone Max Mitchell and then Charlie Kolar here. That would have been the decision to make. Oh, man, that's on me. I jumped at – I'm like a cat. You showed me a little red laser and I jumped at it. Oh, man. Yeah, that was not that wasn't smart. Okay. Plan B. Let's see. There are still some good offensive linemen available. But no one that I'm like sold on as being a backup guard or backup tackle who can immediately help you out. Which this just stinks. This throws everything I was planning out of whack. All right. How do I fix this? How do I fix what I've done? Okay. Bear with me. On to 171. All right, we have a long drop after this. Okay, we're going to go just talent from total, not BPA, but close to BPA in my opinion, for who's the best player on the board at this point. Kobe Bryant, cornerback from Cincinnati. I'm going to add him here, and I'm going to try to get a tackle later at this point. Because like I said, I'm not sold on any tackles on the board. And I would hate to pass on Kobe Bryant just to grab a tackle who might never play versus Kobe Bryant, who could be seeing the field very shortly. And I know they have Jair Alexander, who I want to keep, obviously, on a long-term extension, if possible, if financially possible, with the Aaron Rodgers deal. And they have Eric Stokes from last year, though, that quite a bit, and they re-signed Russell Douglas in the slot. But again, Kobe Bryant to me is just such a good player, or good enough player, that I don't want to pass him up. In here, I feel compelled just to take one, just to take a tackle, because I didn't get a solid tackle I was hoping to get. There are receivers on the board here: Romeo Doubs, Justin Ross, Reggie Roberson, who I think would intrigue Green Bay. Justin Ross might be a little bit redundant to Drake London in a sense, so maybe not that pickup. Charlie Kolar is still on the board here. That would have been the pick for me if I had really taken a second to stop and think. But at 171, safeties are pretty picked over. We're going to go Derek Rosenthal, a player who is very raw, got a lot of he's an elite athlete for his size, but does not have much polish whatsoever. His mechanics are kind of all over the place. He has to improve in that area quite a bit. So he's not going to be ready to start or really contribute year one. But he does have some upside looking forward as like a 2 or 3 year projection, probably more like a 3 or 4 year projection. But again, having elite athletic traits is a good place to start. And if you really feel like you can develop a player, something like Derek Rosenthal might not be a bad addition to your roster. I don't think it will get any better the later you go in the draft. Like these guys, Stuber, Gutekunst, probably going to be guards in the NFL. So I didn't want to wait too much longer to get a tackle. Yeah, safety, something like Smoke Monday maybe, I would consider. Corner. Yeah, let's see. Amari Barno still being on the board is probably a decent pickup here, but I've gone edge already. And I would like to add some depth along the interior defensive line. That's my next pick. 49, yeah, it's not going to. Well, I can wait. I'm going to take Amari Barno here just because it's a value pickup. I think he'll go much higher than this in reality. It's one of the players where I think the mock draft machine has not been updated yet to reflect it, or maybe they just are lower on him than I am. But I think Barno in that scheme would actually work out fairly well. Would be a pretty good contributor down the line. And we look at interior defensive line. Neil Farrell Jr. is a player I expect to go much higher on the board than this far down. Same with Noah Ellis. I think he'll go higher as well. And I'm not drafting for a true nose tackle here. I want someone who could possibly play more of the 3-4 defensive end role in a sense. I think Eric Johnson from Missouri State, who played mostly nose tackle in college, to my knowledge, would be someone to contribute. Like someone who might not fit that role, might never really play significant snaps for you. But I think it's worth experimenting with him based on what I saw at the Senior Bowl. And I'm not picking Noah Ellis or Neil Farrell Jr. because I don't think they'll be here in the real draft. Those guys would obviously be the picks at the spot if we're looking for an interior defensive lineman. They will not make it this far unless there's a medical issue. So I think Eric Johnson, who could really be down the farthest on the board, that was not English, who could really be this far down the board, he could be here. I don't think Farrell or Ellis will be. So I'm going to take Eric Johnson instead and play around and see what we can do with him on that 3-4 defensive line. And that will be the draft. And we're really going to quickly finish this up so it doesn't go too long. But pick number 22, Drake London. 28, Boye Mafe. 53, Sean Ryan. 59, John Mechie. 92, Channing Tindall. 132, potentially my mistake to the draft, Jelani Woods. Pick 140, Kobe Bryant. Pick 171, Derek Rosenthal. Pick 228, Amari Barno. And pick 249, Eric Johnson. That is your mock draft, your 7-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know I made some mistakes there, but I promise I'll do better next time. Thank you guys for watching.